The Grey Wardens. An order of warriors with remarkable abilities, dedicated to fighting the dangerous and frightening creatures known as Darkspawn. They have been around for a very long time and play a crucial role in the fights against the Blight, as they are the only ones that can truly slay an Archdemon. Anyone that shows promise can join their ranks, no matter their race, status, or background. All you have to do is go through the mysterious ritual known as the Joining, and you will become a fully fledged warden. If you survive, that is. The Grey Wardens have played a big part in the Dragon Age series, in both lore and the games themselves. In Dragon Age Origins, we played as a Grey Warden ourselves, and the main plot revolved around saving Thedas from the new Blight. In Dragon Age 2, Hawke's sibling can potentially become a Grey Warden, and in Dragon Age Inquisition, the Wardens are closely tied to the main storyline. Recent trailers for Dragon Age Dreadwolf have already shown us characters and places that strongly suggest we will once again see the Wardens when we return to Thedas and continue our journey in this amazing world in the next game. And I think they will once again play a big role. That's why I want to talk about them, and go in depth on all lore surrounding their history and the way their order works, so we are all caught up once Dreadwolf actually releases. So whether you are new to the series or just need a little reminder, pour yourself a chalice of Archdemon blood, and let me tell you all about the history of the Grey Wardens. To really understand the history of the Grey Wardens, we need to go back to before they even existed. In minus 395 Ancient, the First Blight begins. Hordes upon hordes of Darkspawn emerge from the darkness underground in seemingly infinite numbers, killing anyone and anything in their way, and corrupting and poisoning the very ground they walk on. After destroying most of the Dwarven kingdoms, the Darkspawn moved on to the surface world, where they would continue their destruction under the command of a monstrous creature in the form of a dragon. The Archdemon, said to be an old god of Tevinter, awakened and corrupted by the Darkspawn. For 90 years, the people of Thedas fought, but their efforts seemed futile. Many people started to grow tired, and many more had given up hope completely. Thedas was in desperate need for something. Anything that could help them overcome the blight that plagued their lands. After almost a century of fighting the Darkspawn to no avail, it was clear something needed to change. And in minus 305 Ancient, that change is set in motion when a group of seasoned veterans who have known nothing but the war and blight their entire lives come together. At the fortress of Weishaupt in the barren Enderfels, the soldiers hold a meeting. It is not known how long the meeting lasted, but when they left Weishaupt, they renounced their oaths and titles and declared themselves Grey Wardens. The soldiers of the newly found order vowed that they would try anything in their power to defeat this evil. They would defeat this blight no matter the cost. They developed an ambiguous ritual called the Joining that required them to drink the blood of Darkspawn, corrupting their blood, connecting them to the hive mind of the Darkspawn and giving them remarkable abilities that would benefit them in their fight. They would also go on to recruit as many people to their cause as they could, regardless of their race, social status, or background. So long as the Wardens deemed someone valuable in terms of character, ability, or skill, they were welcome in the order. The Grey Wardens began an aggressive campaign against the Darkspawn. They managed to turn the tide and reclaim the lands that had been given up for lost. On the backs of their loyal Griffons, the Grey Wardens soared through the skies and attacked hordes of Darkspawn from above, swooping into their ranks. They brought back the hope that the people of Thedas so desperately needed. In the course of the First Blight, Archdemon Dumont was slain multiple times over, but would always return not long after he had fallen. Thanks to the abilities they had gained from the Joining, the Grey Wardens could feel whenever the Archdemon was slain, as well as when he would rise again. Eventually, Grey Warden scholars learned that whenever the Archdemon was slain, its tainted soul would move on to possess the body of the nearest Darkspawn. The scholars proposed that, if a Grey Warden was to slay the Archdemon, its soul would move onto the Grey Warden's body instead, due to them carrying the Darkspawn corruption. The Warden's body already has a soul, unlike the Darkspawn, and this would cause the Warden's body to be destroyed, as well as that of the Archdemon. This theory turned out to be correct, as in minus 203 Ancient, a Warden whose name is unknown slays the Archdemon during the Battle of the Silent Plains, putting an end to the First Blight. In the aftermath, the Grey Wardens, who had gained quite the renown due to their key role in defeating the Blight, signed contracts with the nations of Thedas. These contracts ensured their rights and solidified their authority, and they were formally promised that they would have the nation's support in future Blights. They were also given the right of conscription, a right that Wardens could use to recruit anyone into their ranks if they deemed it necessary. And once the right is invoked, a conscript cannot refuse being recruited, whether they are criminal or king. This is especially true during a Blight. Ever since the First Blight, the Wardens swore to watch out for signs of more Darkspawn attacks on the surface, and always warned the rest of Thedas about the possibility of another Blight, though most people were quick to dismiss those warnings. Somewhere between -191 and -189 Ancient, the Wardens discover intelligent Darkspawn that can think and speak. They commanded groups of Darkspawn even after the Archdemon had died, and some could even wield magic with the skill of a Tevinter Magister. The most powerful among them, a Darkspawn emissary who called himself Corypheus. A senior warden by the name of Sashamiri had been asked by her warden commander to lay a trap for the powerful Darkspawn so that they could capture and study him. After voicing her concern, she reluctantly accepted the request and trapped Corypheus in a prison of the warden's own making, hidden deep within the Vindmark Mountains, using Dumat's blood, a fair amount of complicated words and locks, and a powerful artifact called the Key to seal him within. To ensure that no one would know the secret of the spell she'd used to seal Corypheus away, Sashamiri destroyed Dumat's remains. The Wardens had studied Corypheus for some years when they started to realize something was off. The Wardens that had been assigned to guard or study the Darkspawn had begun to act strange. They spoke about hearing a voice in their minds, telling them to seek the key that would free Corypheus. The closer they physically were to Corypheus, the stronger the voice was, and when removed from the area, they would have forgotten anything prior and would be left dazed. It turned out that Corypheus had the ability to influence the minds of Wardens and Darkspawn alike, through their connection to the Blight, drawing Darkspawn to attack the prison and stopping any Warden that would attempt to kill him. After this discovery, the Wardens abandoned their plans to study Corypheus and sealed the prison entirely, hiding any sign of its existence. In 1.5 Divine, approximately 200 years after the First Blight ended, the Archdemon Zazikel rose to lead the Second Blight. Darkspawn poured out of the mountains south of the Enderfells. Sources contradict on whether it was the city of Hosberg that fell first, or the city of Nordbotten, the very place where the Grey Wardens first appeared on the battlefield. But one thing is for certain, the Darkspawn were ruthless in their attacks. When large hordes of Darkspawn from the west started moving east, the Tevinter Imperium abandoned the Enderfells in order to protect their central territories. The Enderfells was hit very hard as a result of that, and even the Grey Warden headquarters in Weishaupt came under siege by the Darkspawn. The events of the Second Blight led to several important historical events in the history of Thedas, like the signing of the Navarran Accord with the Inquisition, the Elves remaining neutral, and the founding of the Circle of Magi, the Templar Order, and the Seekers of Truth. I won't talk about those now since we are focusing on the Wardens here, but I will cover those in future videos. For now, all you need to know is that after learning about the Blight, Emperor Cordillus Dracon of the newly found Orlesian Empire enlisted the help of the mages and gathered his armies to fight back against the Blight, and proved to be very capable too, as he fought and won many battles against the powerful Darkspawn hordes. In 133 Divine, Dracon and his army marched north and lifted the siege of Weishaupt just as the fortress defenses were about to fall. The Wardens then allied themselves with the Emperor and converted to the Chantry before moving further north to free the rest of the Enderfells from the remaining Darkspawn forces. But the Second Blight was far from over, and meanwhile the Darkspawn had spread as far as Orlais, the Ferelden Valley, and the Free Marches. Several major battles took place in the western approach where the Darkspawn emerged from the Abyssal Rift, a great chasm in the south of the area. In order to face the large hordes of Darkspawn, the Wardens built many fortresses there. Adamant Fortress, originally built by the Dwarves, was used as a Grey Warden outpost, and would soon become a symbol of the Grey Warden's courage and skill. In the years that followed, the Grey Wardens slowly began to have the upper hand in this war, and in 195 Divine, the last battle of the Second Blight was fought in Starkhaven. The Wardens had attempted to set up a trap for the Archdemon there, but Somehow, Zazakel knew of their plan and ambushed the Wardens instead. Both sides fought and suffered many losses, but ultimately, the Wardens were victorious as Zazakel was slain by a Warden named Corin. Once again, the Wardens had defeated a Blight, and once again, they remained vigilant while the rest of Thedas believed this Blight to be the last one. In 310 Towers, the old god of fire, Thoth, is awakened, and the Third Blight begins. The Darkspawn attack several cities in central Thedas, though despite their numbers being greater than ever, the hordes are held back by a quick and well-organized defense led by the Grey Wardens. The horde starts to set their focus on the free marches in 318 Towers. At first, both Orlais and Tevinter wanted to remain neutral, and focused on rebuilding their own destroyed lands. Though with enough pressure from the Grey Wardens, both eventually agreed to lend support. With the combined effort of the Grey Wardens, Tevinter and Orlesian armies, Thoth was slain in 325 Towers during the Battle of Hunter Fell. Though the name of the warden that had slain him remains unknown, pieces of their sword were recovered and forged into 3 identical daggers now known as the Thorns of the Dead Gods. There aren't many records of Grey Warden activity after the Third Blight until Enderal awakens in 512 Exalted, and the Fourth Blight begins. Antiva is the first place to be struck by the Darkspawn, taken completely by surprise. The Darkspawn quickly spread into Ravane and the Free Marches. Antiva's Warden commander summoned a group of Antivan Wardens to Antiva City, and called for the Griffin Riders to help evacuate the city. Despite the Warden's advice to flee the city immediately to save as many people as they could, the King and Queen of Antiva City insisted on defending it for as long as possible. Its defenses were not at all able to withstand the siege, and it didn't take long before Antiva City fell. Most of the Darkspawn attacks in the Fourth Blight took place in Antiva, Ravane and the Free Marches, but the Darkspawn also targeted the Enderfells and had managed to lay siege to Hosberg. Orlais and Tevinter both lended little to no aid this time around. The Elven Warden Garahel and his sister Isaiah played a big role in the Fourth Blight. Both were involved and responsible for many victories against the Darkspawn, including the evacuations of several city-states in the Free Marches and breaking the siege of Hosberg in 520 Exalted. Despite the successes, the Wardens suffered many losses. The people of Thedas suffered greatly. Times of Blight are desperate times, and desperate times call for desperate measures. When Isaiah discovers one of her allies named Kalien is a blood mage, she persuades him to teach her blood magic, as she is a mage herself. When Shrike, one of the Warden's loyal Griffins, is found to be infected with the Darkspawn corruption after one of the battles, Isaiah develops an altered version of the joining ritual in an attempt to save the creature's life. She put Shrike through the joining and used blood magic to force him to accept the corruption rather than to fight it, resulting in the Griffin not only being immune to the corruption, but also being much stronger than normal Griffins and being capable of ignoring terrible injuries. The downside of this, however, was that the Griffin would enter an uncontrollable rage when being near Darkspawn and could only be brought back under control by a blood mage, which is exactly what happened to Shrike. Shocked and horrified by the side effects of her modified joining, Isaiah initially vowed to never do it again, but was later forced to do so again anyway due to dire circumstances and direct orders from the First Warden himself. In 524 Exalted, the Wardens once again faced the Archdemon. Garahel constructs a plan to lure the Archdemon away from Antiva and attack it outside the city of Aisley. As part of this plan, Isaiah puts even more Griffins through the joining. After a long and painful battle with many casualties, Garahel managed to drive his sword into one of the wounds in the Archdemon's neck caused by the overly aggressive Griffins, killing it and ending the Fourth Blight. Garahel was regarded as a hero, and his funeral was attended by emperors and kings from across Thedas. His armor and weapons were returned to the Wardens at Weishaupt Fortress as per his own request, and would be placed in a memorial casket along with the horns taken from the Archdemon's corpse. Like with any other Blight, the Grey Wardens would continue to fight the battles with the leftover Darkspawn. And just like any other time a Blight ended, the rest of the surface world believed that, surely, this was truly the last time we'd ever see a Blight, right? Spoiler alert, they were wrong. Again. In the aftermath of the Fourth Blight, the Wardens start to notice something strange going on with their Griffins. Many of them seemed to have some sort of sickness that would eventually lead to the Griffin's death. Due to her experience with Griffons, the Wardens ordered Isaiah to investigate the strange disease. After examining the Griffons, it became clear that it was Isaiah's joining ritual that had caused all of this. The side effects of her joining ritual had developed into a highly contagious illness that was now not only killing the joined Griffons, but also the ones that had not been put through the joining. Unable to find a cure, Isaiah decided to focus on making sure the future generation of Griffons would have a chance. Unbeknownst to the rest of the Order, she retrieved 13 Griffin eggs and hid them within a cave somewhere in the Enderfells. She used blood magic to purify them of the corruption, and then placed them in a form of arcane suspended animation, and left clues only an elven mage would be able to decipher. Perhaps, in the future, Warden and Griffin would once again soar through the skies. To the rest of Thedas, though, the Griffins were now officially extinct. As time went on, the Grey Warden's influence began to decline. Even though the Darkspawn remained a threat to the dwarves, they were barely ever seen on the surface now, and the people started to see the Grey Wardens as unnecessary, a relic of a bygone time. In 7-5 Storm, the Grey Wardens became involved in a feud over the Fereldan throne. When the king of Ferelden died without an heir, there were two strong candidates, Arlen Therin and his cousin Arlessa Sophia Dryden. Through sheer force, intimidation, and manipulation, Arlen eventually won the claim and became king. When Sophia continued to push her claim, he imprisoned her for treason and fully intended to execute her. The king ruled the country with an iron fist, and it didn't take long before he showed himself to be a dishonorable and ruthless leader. So how does this relate to the Grey Wardens exactly? Well, Sophia had proven herself to be a strong and charismatic leader, and garnered a lot of support from the Benorn. In order to appease the people, Sophia's life was spared, and she was forced to join the Grey Wardens instead. Sophia survived the joining and eventually became Warden Commander of Ferelden. Under her command, the Wardens' numbers increased rapidly. Meanwhile, Arlen's tyrannical grip on Ferelden grew tighter, and the people became terrified. In their desperation, they asked Commander Dryden to intervene. Sophia agreed, and in doing so, she disregarded the Wardens' political neutrality. When the king found out about the rebellion, he laid siege on Soldier's Peak, a Grey Warden fortress where Sophia and her allies had been staying. After months of starving the Wardens out, his forces stormed the keep and killed almost everyone inside. The battle was a bloody one, and became even more messy when Sophia ordered one of her mage wardens to use blood magic to summon demons, in order to help them fight Arlen's forces. In the end, Soldier's Peak was claimed by the demons and Sophia was never heard of again. The king declared himself victorious and banished the Grey Wardens from Ferelden, while stripping the Dryden family of all their lands and titles. In doing so, he imposed a bad reputation upon the Wardens that they would carry for the next 200 years. In 910 Dragon, during the events of the novel Dragon Age: The Calling, King Merrick allows the Grey Wardens back in Ferelden after being exiled for 2 centuries. They bring dire news, however. One of their own has been captured by Darkspawn. And since he knows where the remaining sleeping old gods are located, the Wardens feared the Darkspawn would use this knowledge to start another Blight. Since the king traveled through the Deep Roads himself 14 years ago, the Wardens ask for his help, as anything he remembers would help them greatly. Merrick agrees and guides a small group of Wardens into the Deep Roads. Among them, a young Duncan and an elven mage named Fiona. It was during this mission that the Wardens encountered a powerful, intelligent Darkspawn. Where have we heard that before? This Darkspawn called himself the Architect. He had the ability to speak and think independently, and therefore was not affected by the calling of the old gods at all. And he was on a bit of a mission himself. He wished for peace between mankind and Darkspawn, which is a noble goal. His methods? Good for Darkspawn, not necessarily for mankind though. He planned to use the Grey Warden joining ritual to spread the corruption to the rest of Thedas, turning everyone into ghouls. I'll leave the details for another time, but even though the Architect managed to escape, the Grey Wardens ultimately managed to put a stop to his plans. Merrick, Duncan, and Fiona, the only survivors of the group, returned safely to the surface where Merrick officially allowed the Grey Wardens back into the kingdom. Duncan was made second in command of the Wardens in Ferelden, and Fiona mysteriously recovered from the Darkspawn corruption, making her likely the first ever Warden to be free of it, and thus avoiding her calling. After the events of the Calling, the architect continued his research and eventually learned that drinking the blood of a Grey Warden severs the connection between the Darkspawn and the Old Gods, giving them free will and self-awareness. Hoping to end the Blight forever, he developed a modified version of the joining, oh god, not again, and began using it on his fellow Darkspawn. Yeah, because the last time someone made a modified version of the joining, it went swimmingly, didn't it? After many successful attempts, the architect took it even a step further. Knowing its location, he sought out the old god Archdemon and attempted to put him through this altered version of the joining as well. This experiment backfired, however, and Archdemon awakened, but not in the way the architect had hoped. The ritual corrupted the old god, turning him into an archdemon and starting the Fifth Blight. Around the same time, the architect also tried his ritual on a broodmother, which caused her to go insane and would have consequences for the Wardens later on. At some point in the early years of the Dragon Age, although unclear when exactly, the Wardens approached an apostate mage named Hawke and forced him to use blood magic to strengthen the seals to Corypheus' prison, which had begun to weaken recently. Since it wasn't safe for any warden to get close, their only option was to get a mage from outside of the wardens, one not affected by Corypheus' calling. So, in 930 Dragon, during the events of Dragon Age Origins, Archdemon is awakened and the Fifth Blight starts. Please note that we have now reached the part of this tale that has been told and retold by many different voices, and the exact course of events may vary depending on who you're talking to. Though the Darkspawn had started to appear in the Korcari wilds, many did not believe this was a true blight, as the Archdemon had not yet shown itself. King Cailan sent for the Grey Wardens in Orlais and gathered an army to fight the Horde alongside Duncan and the Ferelden Grey Wardens at Ostagar. Unfortunately, the Orlesian Wardens never showed up, but the king and his allies stuck to their plan and prepared for battle. The battle quickly ended in tragedy, as Terran Loghain MacTyr, whose forces were supposed to flank the Darkspawn, commanded his soldiers to retreat.
Sound the retreat.
But what about the king? Should we not...
Do as I command.
Both Duncan and the king were slain in battle, and the king's forces were overwhelmed. Ostagar fell to the Darkspawn that day. It was only thanks to the help of Flemeth, a so-called witch of the wilds, that two of the Grey Wardens made it out alive. Alistair Theron and a newly recruited warden who had taken a joining only earlier that night. After the battle at Ostagar, Loghain declared the wardens traitors and enemies, and made himself regent. In doing so, he angered the nobility and started a civil war. Loghain would then do anything he could to ensure his power, going as far as sending an assassin after the warden and Alistair, who, by the way, was not only a warden but also heir to the Ferelden throne, hiring someone to poison the Earl of Redcliffe, and many other horrible things. Despite Loghain's efforts to disrupt them every step of the way, the Wardens were successful in gathering allies using the Grey Warden treaties. In the same year, the Wardens rediscovered Soldier's Peak and found the place overrun by demons. There, they learned why the demons were summoned and how the summoning backfired when the demons proceeded to attack King Arlen's soldiers as well as the Grey Wardens. They found the possessed body of Sophia Dryden and met Avernus, the mage who summoned the demons, who locked himself in a tower to escape them. There he prolonged his life using blood magic and experimented on his fellow wardens, attempting to find a way to make their abilities more effective while stopping the effects of the corruption that the wardens carry as a result of the joining. While he had not found a way to stop it completely, through his magic he had found a way to slow its spread. After clearing out the fortress and strengthening the veil there, the wardens continued their journey. With the help of Morrigan, Flemeth's daughter and a powerful mage, and the few friends they made along the way, they managed to get support from different factions across Ferelden, cured the Earl of Redcliffe, and freed an Orlesian warden by the name of Riordan, who had been captured by one of Loghain's allies. Riordan then revealed that Loghain was the reason the Orlesian wardens never showed up, as he had stopped them from crossing the Ferelden border. The wardens ultimately managed to stop Loghain, and a new ruler of Ferelden was crowned. On the night before the battle, Riordan met with the young wardens to talk about the ultimate sacrifice the wardens have to make to truly kill an archdemon. Both the warden and Alistair hadn't been Grey Wardens for that long, so neither of them knew what it really takes to stop a blight. The killing blow must come from a Grey Warden. The life of one warden for the rest of Thedas. That is how it has worked for centuries, and that is how it will always be done. Or will it? It is said that on that same night, the Warden was approached by Morrigan, who offered them a way out. Through the means of a dark ritual that took place on the eve of battle, the Warden delivering the killing blow would be successful in killing the Archdemon without having to give their own life. It is still uncertain whether the Warden took the deal or not. Some claim the Warden wanted nothing to do with Morrigan after hearing her proposal and sent her away, while others say the Warden accepted, and in some version of the story, they were even part of the ritual themselves. With the army they had gathered, the Wardens then marched towards Denerim the next day, where they met the Archdemon face to face. Their first attempt to kill the corrupted old god failed and resulted in Riordan's death. Eventually, the Wardens managed to lure it to the top of Fort Draken, where they would kill it and end the Fifth Blight. It is still widely speculated who ultimately killed the Archdemon, or even whether or not they survived. Some will say it was the young Warden, others say it was Alistair. Some even claim it was Loghain that landed the final blow. After the Fifth Blight, the Wardens started to rebuild, and were granted the Arling of Amaranthine to help them do so. In 931 Dragon, the Wardens once again deal with the Architect, as the Surface is now starting to notice the effect of the conflict between him and the broodmother he had put through the joining. How the Wardens dealt with the Architect exactly depends on who's telling the story. Some say he was killed by the Warden Commander, while others say he was allowed to continue his research. After resolving the conflict, the Wardens continued to rebuild. Somewhere between 931 Dragon and 937 Dragon, Warden Commander Larius puts Senior Warden Jenica in charge of guarding Corypheus' prison when he departs for his calling. During her time around the prison, however, Jenica started to believe Corypheus held the key to stopping the Blights, and so needed to be freed. What she did not realize, however, is that she was being manipulated by Corypheus. She used the Carta to lure the oldest child of Malcolm Hawke to the prison in the hopes of using their blood to free Corypheus. Her plan partially succeeded, as Hawke accidentally freed Corypheus but fought and defeated him shortly after. Unbeknownst to Hawke, though, Corypheus possessed the body of one of the Wardens that was present when he was defeated, and would be reborn shortly after. Between 941 and 942 Dragon, reports are made of Wardens acting strangely, and the Wardens at Weishaupt Fortress begin looking through records of the Fourth Blight and encounters with Talking Darkspawn. In Orlais, two groups of Wardens have conspicuously abandoned their post, seemingly having left in a hurry. In Neanderthals, 13 healthy Griffon eggs are found by a Warden recruit named Valya. All eggs hatch immediately after. In Ferelden, the Divine Conclave takes place in the Temple of Sacred Ashes. Grey Wardens, under the influence of Corypheus, aided the Magister's plot to sacrifice the Divine and power the Orb of Destruction. The ritual was interrupted by the Herald of Andraste, however, and this led to a devastating explosion which destroyed the entire temple and caused the breach. Corypheus also caused the Grey Wardens to hear a fake calling, which caused many Grey Wardens to panic, as they believed they were actually getting close to their end. That same year, Corypheus uses one of his allies to trick Warden Commander Clarel into using a blood magic ritual to bind demons to Warden mages, simultaneously enslaving them to Corypheus. They had made the Warden Commander believe that she would be able to use the demon army to invade the Deep Roads and kill the remaining old gods before they awoke, making future blights impossible. When a certain senior warden by the name of, Stroud, or Alistair, or Loghain according to some, protested Clarel's plan, he was cast out and branded a traitor for defying orders. He allied himself with the Inquisition shortly after, and continued his investigations with the help of the Inquisitor and Hawke, the champion of Kirkwall. After discovering Corypheus' plan, the Inquisition laid siege to Adamant Fortress and confronted Clarel about the ritual and told her the truth about what she was actually doing. Just as Clarel realized the truth, Corypheus' dragon was summoned to the fortress and attacked, and battle and chaos ensued. Clarel was killed in battle, but the Inquisitor, Hawke, and the Senior Warden managed to free the Wardens from Corypheus' control, though not without loss. Depending on who's telling the tale, it was either Stroud, Alistair, Loghain, or Hawke who heroically sacrificed himself that day. The fate of the Wardens after Adamant is also heavily debated. One version of this tale states that the surviving Grey Wardens were banished by the Inquisitor, as punishment for what they had done. The exiled Wardens then returned to Weishaupt, where an alleged battle for control of the Order erupted soon after. The other version claims that the Inquisitor welcomed the Grey Wardens, and formed an alliance with them. The Wardens slowly started to rebuild and became open to accept help from those outside the Order. Eventually, rumors began to spread that these Wardens had severed ties with their leaders at Weishaupt, and that both sides of the Order were at war. Somewhere between 944 and 945 Dragon, two Wardens by the name of Ramesh and Lesha set out on a rescue mission to find Warden Jovis and the rest of their mining expedition. Their mission took them to the ancient dwarven Thaig Hormak, where they found all sorts of strangely mutated darkspawn animal hybrids, elven-looking ruins, and a pool filled with a grey, viscous substance underneath a massive yellow-green lyrium crystal. Jovis was found, but he had been turned into a centipede hybrid after drinking from the pool. He retained just enough consciousness to tell the Wardens to destroy the pool, and that they can't let her have it again. Thanks to Lesha sacrificing herself, Warden Ramesh was able to escape the ruins, and warn the rest of the Wardens about what happened and what is seemingly yet to come, as this place was only one of 12 depicted in the ruins murals. The current state of the Wardens is unclear. News from Weishaupt has completely ceased, and there is a lot of uncertainty around the future of the Order. Rumors talk about change, rebellion, and war, and no one really knows what is true at the moment. One thing is for certain though, something is going on at Weishaupt, and whatever it isn't good. And that is the history of the Grey Wardens so far. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed my history lesson on the Grey Wardens, make sure to keep an eye on my channel as I'm going to be talking about them and their order a lot more. If you liked this video, let me know by liking this video. Or leave a comment and let me know which part of the Wardens' history you found the most interesting. And what do you think is next for the Wardens? How do you think they'll play a role in Dragon Age Dreadwolf? If you want to support the channel, check out my Patreon, or join my Discord server and let's keep discussing the Grey Wardens there. That is it for now though, thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one.